Where did you grow up and what did your parents do for a living?
Well, I am a product of the Union. I was conceived in Cardiff, apparently. I was born in London and I grew up in Scotland and then back to Cardiff when I was about 13 or 14. My mum was a hairdresser and had her own mobile business. She had a salon before my brother and I were born, but then after that she did hairdressing in the house, or she then went and did a mobile business. And my dad worked in insurance. He was a manager for a big insurance company. Hence why he was living all around the country.
Were you the first in your family to go to university?
I was, yes. I went to Exeter University, and that's where I really cut my political teeth.
That's when you became a Conservative, when you were a student.
I was.
Unusual.
I have been in the Conservative Party most of my adult life. I joined the first week I went to Exeter. I was sitting in a corridor waiting to be interviewed for the university magazine, and I started talking to this young man who was doing the same, and he told me after our conversation that I was a Conservative and I should join Exeter University Conservative Association, and he was going to be chairman, and that was one Robert Halfon.
Really?
Yes.
My goodness, imagine if you'd been sat in that corridor with one Jeremy Corbyn, how things could have been different.
Who knows? No, but having had that conversation with Robert, it was obvious that I was a Conservative. And so, that's where I started.
Were your mum and dad Conservatives, do you know?
Yeah, very much. My family was always really into politics and current affairs to debate and discuss. And I remember going every Saturday round to see my paternal grandparents, and my grandfather, I can still remember him saying, "Now listen here." And he was from the South Wales Valleys. He was from the Cynon Valley. His father had been a shopkeeper, but in a mining village. But he had been an alcoholic and had, I think, destroyed the business through his alcoholism. And my grandfather then moved down to Cardiff and became a delivery boy and then became a bus driver, but was always into current affairs. So we did lots of debating. Obviously, this was the early to mid 80s, so Thatcherism was very much part of that. I remember the miners' strike. I remember my father saying to his best friend, and they were both grew up in working class area of Cardiff, saying, if Thatcher gives in to the miners, I will give up on her, which I think is really interesting to hear another side of the story, particularly in South Wales, where it's not known even now, as a hotbed of conservatism, but there were people who really believed in Thatcher.
So you get elected at the last election. You are vice chair of the cross-party group on the menopause. Why?
Because one of the reasons why I wanted to go into national politics, and I had never really thought about it, to be honest. I was very happy in local government. Being the leader of Westminster City Council, I don't think gets much better, really. But the time came, and it was a very difficult time in the end of 2019. My predecessor decided at the last minute to step down, and Chuck Ramuna had been selected for the Lib Dems. My seat is 72% Remain. I voted Remain. And I think we all feared that with a candidate like Chuck Ramuna, who looks the part, sounds the part. Personally, I don't think he is the part, but he looks and sounds it. I thought we were under threat. And I was quite humbled that I was being asked proactively by people in the street for stopping me after Mark Field, my predecessor, stepped down. People were stopping me in the street saying, I hope you're going to stand. And I just thought, if I don't, obviously someone's going to get selected. They are likely to be elected as the Conservative candidate in Westminster and the City of London. And I will probably always regret it, thinking I probably could do a better job. I don't know if I could or not, but you've got to take those opportunities, don't you, when they arise. And I'd never thought really about it, but I went for it. It was a tough campaign, but we won. I actually increased the majority that Mark had in 2017. And I decided I wanted to go in, one of the reasons, because I want to speak about the issues that aren't always spoken about. And menopause, I think it's not until you go through these things. It's a bit like pregnancy and labour. No one talks to you about labour. And then you go through it and you think, why did nobody tell me about this? And I think the same with the menopause. It's been this well-kept secret until now, I think until our generation. And I think it's because we have got to the stage in our careers where have risen to a certain level, but then all of a sudden you get hit by the truck that is the menopause, and you think, how the hell am I going to carry on doing the job I'm doing? Our generation is also of the ones where we're the sandwich generation, where we've got children still, because we had children, tend to have them later. I had my first child at 35. But then we've also got elderly parents. And whether we like it or not, it tends to be us women who take on the caring responsibilities because I think we feel obligated, if nothing else. And so I wanted to go into Parliament to be able to lift the lid on some of these issues because I was suffering. And therefore, if I was suffering and didn't feel like I was getting the help and support I needed, then I wanted to help the millions of other women who are going through the same thing.
How are you suffering?
You name it, I have been through it. I had a delightful night's sweat last night, I'll tell you. Huge amounts of weight gain, confidence goes, the night sweats, the insomnia. I'm on HRT, which helps, certainly has helped. It also, I think, helps to speak about it and talk to other women. And that's why I'm delighted that we've set up this APPG for the menopause. Carolyn Harris, who is a Labour MP from South Wales, so, we obviously get on. She has really been the flag bearer, and I've been absolutely delighted to support her and be part of Team Menopause.
You said that you wanted to help people by getting the support that they needed. What support might you need while you're going through the menopause? I'm just turned 49. You first started with the menopause at 48. So come on, give me some tips. What do I need to do?
Believe me, it's a delight. Well, I'm coming up to 53, so I'm still going through it.
Really?
Yeah.
So
5 years. But I mean, you can last for, some women will just sail through it, and that's great. Others will go through different levels of nightmares. It's about having the support. It's about being able to go to your GP and get the information and the help and support you need. And that's what the Menopause APPG is really about. It's lifting the lid and trying to ensure that GPs have the information, because not all GPs will. And I think it's one of those issues which is, now that people are talking about it, people know that they deserve to get the help. I think in the past, women didn't want to talk about it, even admit they're going through it, because they saw it as the end of their lives. It's not. For me, it's a change, but it can be a change for good, in that you basically stop your childbearing years, which, some people might find that sad. I personally think it's very welcome, because then you can get on with the rest of your life and concentrate on you and decide, look, it's middle age, isn't it? You think, I've done my life. What do I want to achieve in the next half? And I think it's really important that women do see this as an opportunity. It's not the end, it's the beginning. And let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate all these amazing women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who are still providing their wisdom, their knowledge, their experience, and let's celebrate them.
Do you think that women with experience and wisdom in Parliament are celebrated and listened to?
Well, I think it's work in progress. I actually was on this bill committee in Parliament a couple of weeks ago, and Angela Eagle was on it. She's on the opposite side. And I was in awe of listening to her. It was about ground rent, so it's hardly sexy stuff. But very, very important issue to get right. And she spent a lot of time debating amendments, and I just sat there and thought, if I am lucky enough to be re-elected, maybe a couple more times, and I get to a stage where I hope I am as experienced and as knowledgeable and as brilliant as someone like Angela Eagle. Now, she's not my party, But I really do think it's so important to listen to people who've been in the House a long time. Doesn't matter what political party, but it's the experience about where they've been and what they've done that I think I should absorb and hopefully be able to use myself one day.
It's really interesting that you say that, because I just was thinking, listening to you, I can't imagine saying to a male MP, maybe I'm being unfair, but I just can't imagine saying, who do you really look at and learn from an elder, perhaps that you seek wisdom from? I can't imagine I'd ever say a woman. Hopefully I'm wrong. I don't think I am.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's great that we've got Harriet Harman as the mother of the House. I think that's really important, and that's a great step forward. But I think you're right. But I do think we are fortunate that we have got some amazing women in Parliament from all parties, but we've got to have more. And that's what we're determined to do, the Conservative Party, I think the Labour Party are way ahead of us, but we've got to improve the number of women who are representing the nation on our benches.
And you're vice chair of the Conservative Party. You are in a prime position to deliver that. How?
That's one of my big tasks, and I'm hoping that we can really push that this year. I think one of the things we need to do is celebrate the women we've got on our benches already. And in my intake, we had a huge number of women come in from all walks of life, all ages. I've got people like Sarah and Deanna and Nicola, who are in their early 20s, up to Jo Gideon, who came in, who's a grandmother, and everybody in between. And we've got to celebrate them. We've got to get them out to encourage other women that it doesn't matter what your background is, where you've come from, what you've done as a career, whether you went to university, who cares? It's about what you stand for and what you will bring to the Commons.
Just going back to something you said earlier, you said when you were talking about the menopause, you started that sentence by saying it's not just the menopause, it's also labour and childbirth that we don't talk about. Is there anything, I've never been through labour, is there anything that we should be talking about when it comes to childbirth that we're not having a conversation about?
I think this goes back to the general issue of women's health. And I think probably because we haven't had as many women involved in policy making over decades. It's always been very much a male-orientated career, if you like. That I think it's now, because we're getting more women into Parliament and more women into senior positions, that issues like women's health are now coming to the fore. And the government now is looking at the women's health strategy, which I'm really excited about. And Maria Caulfield, who's the minister, is so on it. And that's why it's so important, I think, that we've got to make sure that there are women's voices heard. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go into Parliament. Some of the most outstanding debates I've taken part in over the last couple of months have been about baby loss. I had a miscarriage just before my daughter. And
when was that?
That was 2003. And it was horrendous. I mean, it was dreadful. And it's not until you go through it and you realise actually 25% of births, of pregnancies end in miscarriage. But until you go through it, you have no idea. But that debate, it was seeing the Commons at its best. I remember people got very emotional, and I was standing up to intervene when people got upset. Angela Crawley from the SNP stood up when Jeremy Hunt got upset. And it was us coming together as a parliament to discuss issues which people care about. It's not about politics, it's about people.
Tell me about your experience.
Oh, mine was I was 8 weeks. My first attempt of trying to get pregnant with my husband, and just 8 weeks. It just happened. It was unfortunate, but it's not until then you have your rainbow child. And I know Carrie Johnson mentioned this, the birth of her daughter. Again, I hadn't heard about that phrase before, and I think it's a really important one. But when I got pregnant with my daughter, I remember being terrified of going for that first scan. you know, you're just convinced that this baby is not going to be viable because your last one was a miscarriage. So, but again, going back to the issues about women's health, it's also about ensuring that men are aware of what we go through. But I think a lot of men want to be involved. So the menopause, I know, because my husband's living through it with me, but millions of men are doing so with their partners and their sisters and their mothers. And again, it's getting these issues out, which not just helps women, it helps the men.
You're a feminist, aren't you?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Nikki Aitken, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.